Phyllis Schlafly, conservative leader and foe of ERA, dies at 92. Phyllis Schlafly, whose grassroots campaigns against communism, abortion and the Equal Rights Amendment galvanized conservatives for almost 2 generations and helped reshape American politics, died on Monday. She was 92. Her death was confirmed by the Eagle Forum, the conservative organization she founded in 1975. In her time, Mrs. Schlafly was one of the most polarizing figures in American public life, a self-described housewife who displayed a moral ferocity reminiscent of the axe-wielding prohibitionist Carrie Nation. Richard Viguerie, who masterminded the use of direct mail to finance right-wing causes, called her the First Lady of the conservative movement. On the left, Betty Friedan, the feminist leader and author, compared her to a religious heretic, telling her in a debate that she should burn at the stake for opposing the Equal Rights Amendment. Ms. Friedan called Mrs. Schlafly an Aunt Tom. Mrs. Schlafly became a forceful conservative voice in the 1950s, when she joined the right-wing crusade against international communism. In the 1960s, with her popular self-published book A Choice Not an Echo, it sold more than 3 million copies, and a growing legion of followers. She gave critical support to the presidential ambitions of Senator Barry Goldwater, the hard-right Arizonan who went on to lead the Republican Party to electoral disaster in 1964, but who planted the seeds of a conservative revival that would flower with the rise of Ronald Reagan. And in the 1970s, Mrs. Schlafly's campaign against the Equal Rights Amendment played a large part in its undoing. The amendment would have expanded women's rights by barring any gender-based distinctions in federal and state laws, and it was within hailing distance of becoming the law of the land. Both houses of Congress had passed it by a vote of more than 90%, and 35 state legislatures, only 3 shy of the number required for adoption, had approved it. But the amendment lost steam in the late 1970s under pressure from Mrs. Schlafly's volunteer brigades, mainly women, most of them church-going Christians. Mrs. Schlafly was Roman Catholic, and not a few of them lugging apple pies to cajole legislators. Despite an extension of the deadline, the amendment died, on June 30, 1982. Spurred by court ruling. Many saw her ability to mobilize that citizens' army as her greatest accomplishment. Angered by the cultural transformations of the 1960s, beginning with the 1962 Supreme Court ruling prohibiting state-sponsored prayer in public schools, her little old ladies and tennis shoes, as some called them, went from ringing doorbells for Goldwater to serving as foot soldiers for the Reagan Revolution. Schlafly had discovered a genuine populist sentiment in a large female population that opposed the ERA, feminism and modern liberalism with the same intensity of emotion that feminists brought to their cause. Donald T. Critchlow wrote in Phyllis Schlafly and Grassroots Conservatism, A Woman's Crusade, 2005. Without her and her followers, Mr. Critchlow said, the conservative intellectuals, research organizations and foundations that are often credited with reshaping the contours of American politics might have failed. The conservative theorist and organizer Paul Weyrich said that Mrs. Schlafly dressed up the conservative movement for success at a time when absolutely no one thought we could win. Even liberals conceded her impact. If political influence consists in transforming this huge and cantankerous country in one's preferred direction, the political scientist Alan Wolf wrote in The New Republic in 2005, Schlafly has to be regarded as one of the 2 or 3 most important Americans of the last half of the 20th century, although he hastened to add that every idea she ever had was scatterbrained, dangerous and hateful. For all her political heft, it was Phyllis Schlafly the person who often animated discussion. With her pearls, perfect posture and Daughters of the American Revolution pedigree, she basked in depictions of herself as the perfect wife and mother. She let it drop that she breastfed all 6 of her babies and that she had taught all her children to read before they started school. Feminists said it was her husband's wealth, he was a lawyer from a rich Illinois family, that had liberated her to politics. Her energy was formidable. She wrote or edited more than 20 books, published an influential monthly newsletter beginning in 1967, appeared daily on nearly 500 radio stations and delivered regular commentaries on CBS television in the 1970s and CNN in the 80s. In 1972, she formed a volunteer organization called Stop Era, which 3 years later became the Eagle Forum, to coordinate her campaigns. In 1975, when she was living in Alton, ill, Mrs. Schlafly announced to her family at dinner that she was going to enter law school at Washington University in nearby St. Louis. Her husband, by her account, disapproved of the idea at first, and she abandoned it, only to resurrect it when he changed his mind. She received her law degree in 1978, ranked 27th in a class of 186, and passed the Illinois bar a few months later. Some opponents called Mrs. Schlafly a hypocrite for pursuing so energetic a career while championing traditional female roles. She replied by calling her political career a hobby and saying she would never offer an opinion on whether women should or should not work outside the home. Other detractors, like Karen DeCrow, a former president of the National Organization for Women, praised Mrs. Schlafly even as they castigated her politics.